My name is Marc Urselli. I'm an audio engineer and music producer. I started as an intern in this very studio, which is Eastside Sound, one of the longest running studios in New York City. And I worked my way up. I'm the chief audio engineer. I do most of the sessions, but I'm also a freelancer, so I work all around the world. I am an avid collector of audio gear. In particular, I love vintage ribbon microphones. For speakers, as you can probably see behind me, I am an Atom Audio endorser, and the S5H, which are the ones soffit mounted in the wall, are my absolute favorite ones of the Atom Audio family of products. Even though in a studio you kind of tend to work between near fields and you sometimes switch to the soffit mounted ones to hear something louder, I've developed a different approach where I basically mix on the soffit mounted larger speakers the whole time, just at quieter levels. I tend to listen very quietly, especially when mixing. And you know, I switch to the near fields to have a different kind of view of what I'm looking at, but I tend to record and mix on the S5H. As for headphones, my favorite pair is these LCD4Zs, although I'm now being tempted by the 5s, which feel and look beautiful and sound beautiful. For consoles, I've always used a Harrison console here in the studio because it's the best of both worlds in terms of it's an analog console with digital control. So when I looked for a replacement for that Harrison, the obvious choice for me was this Neve Genesis because it's a similar kind of design. It's an analog console, but it allows you to do some degree of digital control, some control of the DAW, and obviously it has Neve preamps, which are some of the best sounding preamps in the world. But also, speaking of preamps, I love Simproceeds, which are this very high quality, very clean, pristine Japanese preamp manufacturers. And then I love these Harrison preamps, which I use a lot, especially on drums, as you can see. And then I love these old preamps like the Ampex 351, which are these two silver ones here. Speaking of Les Paul, before, when I visited Les at his home, he had 8 of these rack mounted because these were part of the tape machine, of a tape machine. And he had designed the 351, which is this silver one. There's also the 650, which is up there, which is the brown ones. Those were some of the earliest preamps that were mounted in a suitcase with a reel-to-reel tape. So in other words, you'd open the suitcase and you'd have the reel-to-reel and the 2 preamps for left and right, and you could have a portable tape recorder. So all of these Ampex preamps have been adapted from tape machines to be preamps. There's a lot of beautiful gear here at Eastside Sound, and when I go to other studios, the first question I ask is always what console they have, because that's going to determine what preamps I'll be using. And so I tend to go to studios that have Neve consoles because I love the sound of those preamps so much. I sometimes bring microphones with me. Preamps are a bit unwieldy to bring around. If I'm going somewhere where they have speakers I really dislike or I don't know, and I'm doing a mixing session, I might bring a pair of speakers. The A7X are portable enough that I could throw them in a suitcase if need be. Obviously I bring headphones because, like I said, that's the easy way to travel and have something you're accustomed to. But microphones is really the only thing I bring because it's easier to bring around, and they're not that big. You can choose how many to bring. When I did the session with Hal Wilner for U2 in New Orleans, we went to a recording studio that had been sold to a private owner and was now not a commercial facility, but somebody's basically living room with a console. And because of that, the new owner had sold a lot of microphones. So that's one example where I brought a lot of my own microphones to supplement what they had or didn't have anymore. So I brought some JZ microphones, which is a brand of microphones I use a lot, Latvian brand. They make beautiful condensers, gold sputtered diaphragms that sound really amazing. In particular, the BH1S is my favorite vocal mic. I've recorded Bon on that and a lot of other artists. They also have these BT201s, a pair with interchangeable capsules that I bring, that I've used to record the overheads on Larry Mullen's drums and also the acoustic guitar overdub that we did with the Edge. Then I have a ribbon mic that I really like that I sometimes carry around. It's made by a Polish company called Hum, H-U-M, and it's a stereo ribbon mic that does stereo and MS and has preamps built inside. So if I'm going somewhere where they might not have a very good set of preamps, this microphone has preamps built inside and I can just go out line level with 2 XLRs, and it has even a remote controller, so you can remote control the preamps from the control room if the mic is on the other side of the glass. There's a lot of mics I own and I carry around. Erland is another brand I love. They're a Swedish brand that makes triangular diaphragms, so they're extremely unique and great at capturing transients. Here at Eastside, they've become my favorite piano microphone, so I record all my pianos with those. But they're very versatile and work great on vocals, for example, so I've done vocals on them. The triangular diaphragm of Erland has a lot of science behind that I'm not going to pretend I understand or attempt to repeat. But there was a very interesting demonstration that I think is on their website, where they took a bucket of water, a regular round bucket of water, and they dropped something in it, and you can watch the waves created in the water. You can watch them go towards the edges and then hit the edges and come back towards the center. Now we know sound behaves like water to a degree. So then they took a triangular bucket of water, dropped the same item in there, and you watch these water waves dissipate in the 3 corners. And they were using that to demonstrate that you don't have the reflection of the sound coming back towards. I don't know how much of that is, how scientific that is, how it translates. I'm not a scientist, I'm an audio engineer. I use my ears rather than math, but it seemed like a convincing explanation of what a triangular diaphragm would do. They're the only ones doing it, and all I can tell you is they sound amazing, so I'm very happy with those mics. I have an incredible, very, very extremely rare microphone by a brand from Milan called All'Occhio Bacchini. I look on it on eBay or on Reverb, and I never seen one. And when I finally found one, I just immediately bought it for a lot of money from a guy, a collector, that had it in a microphone museum. It's a very large ribbon mic. It's extremely heavy. It's like 10 pounds, I don't know. It was a company that opened in the 20s making radio equipment, and then were forced during the war to start making transmitters and other stuff for the war. And then their factory was bombed during the war, so they ran out of money and space, and they basically ceased activities after the war. So there's very, very few microphones left from that era, from that particular company. Similar story, except for the bombing, is a company called CGE, which is actually the Italian arm of General Electric, hence the GE. CGE stands for Company of General Electric. It was General Electric selling or licensing their names to an Italian company that started making microphones that were modeled after RCA microphones. They were making ribbon microphones for radio and TV. I found 3 of those. And every time, but I should mention, every time I find these mic, I have them restored. Whatever they need, whether they need replacing of the ribbon or whatnot. Oftentimes that's the first thing you have to do in an old ribbon mic. I don't know if this should be, maybe I should keep it a secret, because they're gonna get too busy and not able to fix my microphones. But I've used, in the UK, the person I use all the time is Stuart Travener from Xaudia. And I use him because I also happen to collect ribbon mics from the UK. guilty as charged. Reslos, if you never heard of Reslos, they were being used by the Beatles on vocals. There's a lot of pictures of them using them on vocals, but I've also seen pictures in London at Ronnie Scott's. There's pictures of, I think, Charlie Parker playing into one. So they were being used. It's a small, very, very small ribbon mic. They sound great on horns. They sound great on guitar. And there's this guy, Saudia, Stuart Travener, in York, that fixes them up and makes them beautiful and perfect sounding. So I own 10 of those microphones, about 6 more than what I actually need, but such is the obsession. The mics that I have in the US, I sent to either Cole Sudart, I believe he's in Nashville. Steven Sank is another guy, I believe in California, that I've used before to repair ribbon microphones. Then there's Clarence Kane, who I believe is in New Jersey, and he specializes in RCAs. So I have a couple of old RCAs, and I've sent one of them to him to be repaired or recommissioned. I just love surrounding myself with good gear. It makes my job more fun, and it makes my job easier, because the number one most important thing for a recording engineer is being in front of talent, but that talent is only going to sound as good as the equipment you record it with. For me, the front end is very important, the microphone and the preamp, if I'm recording, but obviously being also a mixing engineer, it's all about how you listen back to this stuff, hence good headphones, good speakers. And because I travel so much, the headphones help me have a continuity of listening experiences across my 2 apartments in New York and London, but also across all the places that I go to on tour or to record. So yeah, I'm a sucker for gear.